You've tuned into Stranger Than Fiction News, broadcasting live from the dark side of the planet. It was a record-setting day for deaths in New York and in Paris today. We've got tons of troubling news to cover. Stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen, as we hack the Matrix. We're broadcasting live on the ScrewTube right now. Big shout out to everybody out there. Much love to the studio audience. If you want to check out our live broadcast, it's on our ScrewTube, Stranger Than Fiction News. Ladies and gentlemen, so much news to cover. It's very disturbing. People thought it was getting better, and now it looks like it's getting worse. Drudge report right now, New York, 731 deaths in one day. A record 1,400 deaths in France. It was just looking better the other day. You know, it's the old switcheroo. They just keep messing with us, ladies and gentlemen. And every day it just keeps getting worse and worse. Let's get through the news because there's tons of it. And then we'll try and explore other ideas. France coronavirus outbreak now worse in the world. They say they've banned outdoor sports. In Paris, they say no more jogging or walking for the Parisians. It's the full lockdown. It's gone full Wuhan in Paris right now. And you can't imagine the situation. Now, this French professor became a rock star around the world, touting the Hydroxychloroquine Zithromax combination. A lot of politicizing has been done over this miracle cure. How miraculous is it? Nobody knows for sure, but it looks good. We'll get into that and much more. What is this? A 36-year-old COVID patient died 5 days after testing negative for the virus after being discharged from a Wuhan hospital. That was reported a few weeks ago. We've heard of various reports like that where people seem to be relapsing or getting reinfected. Today we got new news of a similar study in South Korea, which has been pretty successful fighting this virus, right next door to China. They're reporting now that the virus can hide in cells and reactivate. And that might seem extraordinary to some people, but we've actually seen this in other viruses where it will go latent. There's a latent phase, and then it can reactivate, ladies and gentlemen. And, it's dastardly, yet this is a bioweapon. And obviously the implications here are very grave. There is no recovery. This is being reported by numerous publications. Are we going to see some of the same? Not that long ago, we talked about more anecdotal evidence from France. There was a television interview of a professor in Paris with a doctor friend who claims that he was relapsing. That seems like a pretty reliable case study. It's not, published, peer-reviewed scientific evidence, but much of it gets, politicized and whitewashed anyways, just like all of the evidence pertaining to 5G, for example, or to vaccines, for example. There's plenty of studies on the dangers of EMF, but you still have the news media claiming that it's some sort of conspiracy theory. And usually what starts off as a conspiracy theory ends up being, the overwhelming truth a few months or a few years down the road. Denial is always the first stage, especially when it comes to this beast system. They're always in denial.
We're in a live exercise here to get this right.
Except every once in a while you get a hint of truth. Live exercise, the plandemic of 2020. Here comes the cashless society. Here comes the beast system. After this super virus kills off all of the freeloaders on Social Security and Medicaid, all those people that paid into the system are now getting cashed out. It's like a George Carlin stand-up routine almost. They'll be back for it, ladies and gentlemen. They're coming back for it, for your 401ks, your Social Security. They want it back. And they're getting it too, ladies and gentlemen. And this whole time, I mean, it's just been the big con. They've always been 2 steps behind this virus, but they've done so on purpose. We're going to be talking about some very disturbing aspects of what's going on out there. You're going to love this, what's coming, but we want to get through the news first, if we can. Not always easy. Lots of news to cover. But again, this is another example, another report that this virus relapses, never goes away. It goes dormant like herpes and then it comes back. And, you know, this isn't just a cold sore. This is like AIDS that may turn into cancer. You know, a lot of these viruses that go dormant in a certain cell line and then come back usually turn on some sort of like, you know, cancer-like trigger. And we could spend a lot of time on, you know, on all of that. It's really fascinating to see how these viruses go latent and how they spoof the immune system with like countermeasures, in fact, microRNA, and it, you know, acts as immunosuppressors. It's really amazing to watch the programming at work, and that's exactly what it is. I mean, it's like nanotechnology. It's like war on the nanotech scale. And that's essentially what biology is. It's nanotechnology. It's got a programming language, and, you know, it's intelligent design. This whole world is a construct. Everything that's happening, it's part of the plan right now, ladies and gentlemen. There's a lot of people freaking out there. And while there may be many subplots to this story, you know, we've seen this time and time again in the Bible. You've got these huge empires that, you know, basically turn their way. They turn their back on faith. They go the other way. And, you know, they end up being proud and boastful and heathen-like, and they just get destroyed. Time and time again, we've seen this described in the Bible. And we're seeing that exact same syndrome right now, believe it or not. It's like the Babylon syndrome. And, you know, New Babylon right now, New York, is basically, you know, suffering the plague. Let's keep going on with the news here. New deaths in 72 hours. It's like a 9/11 in the United States, France, Spain, Italy, the UK. And, you know, some pretty interesting numbers being reported in other places. How real are the numbers? We're learning, you know, that basically every government is following the China syndrome. And they're all, you know, minimizing the numbers. They're all omitting certain categories. They're all taking advantage of the chaos to not include numbers from, you know, regional hospitals and the like. So we're learning about all sorts of interesting things in the press conferences. You don't see many of the clips, but they're rich in information if you have the patience to sit through it. What is this? Chinese regime hoards global inventory of medical supplies. So, you know, they birth the virus, they incubate it, they spread it throughout the world, you know, through airports and the like. And then at the same time, they're sucking up all the medical supplies. And for the first month and a half, I mean, they had the spotlight all to themselves. And so people were like donating all of their supplies. They're like, oh, the poor Chinese. Yeah, let's send all of our face masks, Let's send all of our, gear over there, pretty much. And nobody was smart enough to figure out, the obvious for some reason, that this was going to blow up in everybody's town. And I mean, we were rolling with that story day one of the lockdown. I mean, you could just connect the dots and go, okay, so at the height of the epidemic, the airports at this major city were operational, and they were just sending, tens of thousands of people out there into the world every day through all the major cities. I mean, it just, it was just a matter of time. And I think we clocked it pretty well. We're like, well, it took about 2 months for, everything to kind of like get going out there in Wuhan, from the first cases to the lockdown. So we're like, oh, well, yeah, about 2 months after the lockdown, in Wuhan, we're going to be getting ours, which would have been 322. They locked down January 22nd, and we figured by 322 it's just going to be, pretty messed up out there. And like clockwork, boom, bitches, it was just like that. And you didn't have to be a rocket scientist to figure this stuff out. You just had to be interested. And they were just so not interested, the people on the TV, and it was like beyond criminal. Because you could see the videos from China, and it was like, the end of the world over there. The ERs overflowing, people dropping dead on the streets. It looked like, like a huge disaster. Like Fukushima, Chernobyl, but bigger. Nobody in their right minds could have seen, this footage and been like, oh, that's no big deal. So now, the question is, what really happened? What really happened those first days? Why did they just continue on like nothing was going on? And, we've probably got, several competing ideas when it comes to all of that. We'll try and explore that, but to sum it up quickly, it could be that they knew it was too late before they could do anything. And, the best way to get through this was to get as many people infected as quickly as possible. Otherwise, this would linger for years. So that's, theory one, which is what they'll go to next. And then theory two is that they let this in like another 9/11 so that they could come on television like a wartime president, suspend your rights, come after your guns, and rape you at home and bury you alive. I mean, it's either one or the other. Now, you might be thinking to yourselves, the first option sounds a little more realistic, a little more humane. And nobody could, really blame you for thinking that. But then you look at the Georgia Guidestones, you look at what's gone on, like 9/11 and the like, all the stuff that you've seen since 9/11, all the Gladio B events, all the false flags, the WikiLeaks, ladies and gentlemen, the Agenda 21, etc., etc.
And when it got down to the plane is 10 miles out, the young man also said to the vice president, "Do the orders still stand?"
The problem is that the people on TV have no credibility. They're so criminal. In fact, you would suspect them of everything and anything, and you probably wouldn't be wrong. That's how bad it is. I mean, it's a total criminal enterprise. The gangsters are in control, and the creepiest ones at that. You look at some of these politicians, and it's just like, where did they find these people? We don't want to name names, but I mean, you could just sit there and do a biography on all of these people, and have a hoot and holler doing it. But that's besides the point. The point is that there's a high probability this is another 9/11. Even though you would like to think that, they did the best they could and they just got caught off guard, and this is some kind of like Chinese, Pearl Harbor, some kind of preemptive attack. And, looking at their track record, I mean, they make for a decent enemy. You know, they got these huge concentration camps, and people have seen, you know, the lifestyle out there. It's, you know, there's a lot of propaganda possibilities out here. You know, if you're working at the Ministry of Propaganda, I mean, the Chinese make for the perfect enemy. And it doesn't seem like they like very many people either, to be quite honest. It's hard to say. You know, their whole civilization looks like it's under captivity. And we look at it and we're like, yeah, man, I mean, you know, they got it real bad. And then you look outside your window, you see the death towers, you hear the helicopters, you know, people are ODing on drugs. Now there's, you know, the super virus running around. And it's like, well, other than perhaps the food and, you know, standard of living, I mean, it's more or less the same thing. We're as captive as these people. We just don't fully appreciate it. In a sense, I mean, I guess these people are worse off. They're probably off to the gas chambers. But look, it's pretty much there. Everybody's been dosed by the Zyklon C, by this Wuhan super virus. And the death towers are everywhere. We're happy to report that citizens are striking back. The rebellion has struck back and has taken down some of these death towers in the UK. It's become a big thing. The mainstream press, the beast system, is very worried about it. They're all running carbon copy stories, you know, saying, oh, crazy conspiracy theorists are taking down death towers because they think, you know, this, that, and the other. And there's just like a mountain of evidence when it comes to the harmful effects of EMF. And it's just amazing that anyone would put out, you know, garbage like the mainstream media. But they're paid shills. It's like, you know, it's product placement. They're getting paid to write articles that say it's safe and that, you know, the concerns of the people are unjustified and perhaps even extreme. You know, you can't opt out of their eugenics programs. That's extreme. Like the fluoride, I mean, it's no doubt that shit causes cancer, pardon the language. You know, it's like a neurotoxin, and it's also like, you know, kind of like a mood-altering drug. And they claim it's for your teeth, but everybody can go buy toothpaste. You know, you don't force people to brush their teeth, right? But you're just dosing people with this chemical for their teeth. That's the cover story. That doesn't make sense. It might have made sense in the 1950s when they were rolling that out. You know, they're like, how do we explain this? How do we explain that we're dosing everybody in the water supply? And it's like, oh yeah, we'll just say it's for their teeth. And people bought it, of course. But, you know, it's just like everything else. These people are so out to get you. And once again, you know, they've been busted. They're trying to, you know, they're trying to make it seem like it's almost over. But this is just the beginning. This is just the first wave. If we're lucky enough to, you know, see it in waves where there's actually a period of calm and normalcy, I mean, that would be lucky at this stage. If we get like a somewhat normal summer, make it count. Do everything. Have fun and prepare for the next winter, because it promises to be, you know, exceptionally devastating. Because in theory, with the numbers, this thing more than likely has like a 5% kill rate. And that means that, you know, if most people are going to get infected by this at 5%, you know, if you do the math, we're talking about 15, 20 million people in America that are going to die. That's a lot of body bags, you know, in a short amount of time. And in theory, it's going to burn through everybody. And it probably already has burned through most people in the primary infection stage. Now, we've talked about the pathogenesis of this virus, and it seems like, you know, there's different stages of this disease. And what you hear about, you know, in the worst case is like stage 4. but not everybody goes to stage 4 at the same speed. It's a chronic disease that continues to progress, and disease management is going to be key. Now, we've been hearing quite a bit of stuff about the hydroxychloroquine and the Zithromax, and we're hearing a lot of positive cases. We're also hearing about a small fraction of people that are having, heart troubles because of it. And so it isn't, it isn't going to work for everyone. And perhaps the hydroxychloroquine will be enough. We've also been following, other treatments. They're getting a lot of positive results with the plasma of people that are that were or are infected. That's yet to be fully determined, but the antibodies seem to be working as well. We're hearing reports that Kaletra is being used with the hydroxychloroquine, perhaps a less troubling combination than with the Zithromax. We're also hearing about ivermectin, sold under the brand Stromectol, and that's pretty much all by itself. You don't need the hydroxychloroquine for that one. Perhaps there's less side effects associated with it. Look, I think there's a lot that we don't know yet about what's going to work and what's not going to work. There's reason to believe that once people get off the hydroxychloroquine, that this virus will become resistant to it. That's what happens in certain cases when people stop taking the antivirals. All of a sudden the virus becomes resistant to that drug because of the mechanism that it attacks. So, there's still a lot of things, a lot of twists and turns and pitfalls that have yet to, really have been discovered yet. And so we're looking forward to all of that, of course, and so much more. And we've got some other therapies too that have come on the radar. Let's try and get there in the news. Let's see. Yeah, so they're hoarding all of the medical supplies, of course. This Steve Bannon's film Claws of the Red Dragon, I think there's a lot of things you could say about that, but primarily it seemed like a Cold War had already begun, which kind of fuels the possibility of this being a kamikaze type of attack. What are you going to do now? It was an accident kind of thing. And because a lot of people are going to want to nuke somebody after this is all said and done. Chances are it's going to kill 100,000 people in this first wave, maybe more. And it may take out world leaders. It may it may do all sorts of damage, and people are going to want revenge. This is like a mega 9/11. So you can already see, the stage being set for some kind of war here. Apparently this kind of thing still happens. All the shadow banning. You get unsubscribed or unfollowed and you're not getting the notifications. Taiwan is on track to have fewer deaths per million than just about anybody else. How is Taiwan containing the virus? They're right next door. How did South Korea do it? There's more than just testing going on. It's treatment. It's early treatment. It's an effective plan that's rolled out efficiently versus the train wreck that has been our response to this, from the testing to treatment and the like. We'll have to see when that all gets better, but we've got some real disturbing video that it's worse than we think it is, much worse, and we'll get into that here pretty soon. Coronavirus treatment approved in the UK and the US, which uses blood plasma, and we have a feeling that this is going to be used on the Prime Sinister. undoubtedly, you know, the VIPs are going to get all of this kind of, you know, gene therapy or immunotherapy, or even, you know, this type of blood plasma transfusion type of therapy. But they'll get, you know, the good stuff, and there's no telling what everybody else is going to get. But this obviously has shown its effectiveness as well for patients that are, you know, in intensive care. So, you know, they're looking at treatment options for the, you know, for the most disturbing cases. We'll be getting into, you know, what's on the radar right now. People have to get sick. That's the new plan, to expose the young and the healthy in Australia to coronavirus to ease social distancing. And, you know, if they're going to do something like that, you know, it's probably better now than in the middle of winter. They've been able to manage this really well. They've had, you know, this happen basically in their summer, and now it's, you know, just the beginning of fall. So, but the temperatures are still really nice. So they haven't had it like, you know, Europe and North America, you know, at the tail end of winter during a flu season. So, you know, we could spend time on that. Paris bans outdoor exercise and threatens to hit joggers and walkers with a $150 fine. Isn't that delicious, ladies and gentlemen? Not sure what the video guy is doing out there, but yeah, that's not where we want to go. No, probably not that either. Why don't we disturb you with this one? This is going to be a classic. And, you know, we've got more where that came from, if you're wondering. Let's see. Any case, yeah, so outdoor activities banned. And so this is like the steady, you know, baby stepping towards the full Wuhan lockdown liquidation. And again, we've stressed how important fresh air and sunshine is. And the full lockdown will actually make things much worse. So we expect now their numbers to get much worse, and for them to have like another wave, you know, right after this one. And it's just going to be like a downward spiral. The more they lock down, the more they try to exterminate people, the worse, you know, the situation will get. Obviously, the higher the casualty numbers will become. Vivid pandemic dreams and nightmares keep the nation awake during this coronavirus outbreak. How have you been sleeping lately, ladies and gentlemen? Obviously, we're in stormy waters right now, but that's no reason to be afraid. Why are ye so fearful? How is it that ye have no faith? We'll make it through this storm, ladies and gentlemen. Most of you should have prepared your ark by now, and you're ready to come out saying, Pharaoh, let our people go. Christians need a homeland, ladies and gentlemen. That's what America is supposed to be. We need to reclaim our homeland. You know, there's a church in every town. It's freedom of religion, not freedom from religion. And our motto has always been, in God we trust. That's who we are. That's what it means to be an American. I don't know who these freaks are in San Francisco and Sodom and Gomorrah, but obviously they need to relocate somewhere closer to hell, ladies and gentlemen. Vivid dreams indeed. Wuhan funeral homes burn victims alive. Screams in the flames. Neighbors of the crematoriums say that they heard people screaming from those crematoriums. More disturbing witness accounts of the atrocities. 21 million people missing from Wuhan, or China, we should say, overall. This is the deep state shelter-in-place position. You need to grab your ankles, You're safer at home. The deep state will come by to penetrate. No astral glide provided, ladies and gentlemen. None. And I'm sure we've got other video here, but for some reason this is it. So yeah, there we go. That's disturbing news. Characteristics of peripheral lymphocyte subset alteration during the pneumonia. This is kind of looking at, you know, the white blood cell counts, and this is important because we want to know how it interacts with the immune system. Of course, there's the B cells and T cells, you know, general kind of classifications for attack cells and memory cells. And, you know, it'll be interesting to look at all of these types of reports. I'm sure, you know, reading it, there'd be some interesting things to point out, but we've just got so much news to cover, not enough time. Britain's coronavirus death toll could be higher, 80% higher than official figures. You know, they're just not counting all the numbers. They're not counting all the people that are dead at home. That's the point of the lockdown, so they can just come collect bodies, you know, at night instead of, you know, having people film dead bodies on the streets. Britain could be worst coronavirus hit nation, undoubtedly. Just a week after returning from their trip, Miss Murillo found her husband dead. She kept trying to get him tested from the beginning. They told her no. And, you know, now they're finding out, you know, this girl basically paid for a private test post-mortem. It came back positive. And there's just, you know, untold numbers of people that died that just didn't get that on their death certificate, died from this. Here's some interesting news. Some people are burning 5G death hours out of concern. The electro pollution might be worsening the outbreak, obviously, reported by Natural News. Tyrannical judges order coronavirus patients in Kentucky to wear tracking devices like prisoners. So, you know, that's coming. Gross underreporting of coronavirus deaths across the USA means the official numbers are extremely low, undoubtedly. 5G exposure alters the structure and function of hemoglobin, causing coronavirus patients to die from oxygen deprivation. Well, we'll have to look more into that one. These two here were interesting kind of lectures, reports, presentations on viral infections. And, you know, the herpes virus is well known for its, you know, ability to go latent. And they talk about the different phases of latency and reactivation. It's rather interesting. We need to, you know, spend more time consolidating relevant facts there and kind of present them in a way that's interesting. But coronavirus treatment, which uses blood from recovered patients, helps people get better in days. Captain America here, the man who risked his career to protect his sailors from the virus, you know, that's causing a big uproar. I think they should both get their jobs back and everybody just kind of, you know, go back to normal. It's, you know, it's tough enough out there right now, but I'm sure, you know, we'll see what happens here. Governor Cuomo of New York is reporting that the federal government has increased their hydroxychloroquine supply. Supposedly they're going to be flooding the pharmacies with it. We'll see if it has a dampening effect. You have to wonder, you know, I'm sure other countries have tried this as well. And we'll just have to see, you know, what is the success rate here with this drug. And I think we really need to know more about, you know, the reactivation of the Wuhan supervirus in victims, and to see, you know, if it develops a tolerance for hydroxychloroquine. That may be a sign that you don't want to come off it, like, you know, the lupus people that use it long term. So we'll have to see. Again, we've talked about this and other possibilities. Data scientist reveals eye pain may be a symptom, according to, you know, big data. Mysterious heart damage, not just lung troubles. Now, look, this is obviously part of the attack of the nervous system. We know it causes stealth encephalitis, rabies type of symptoms, mild rabies symptoms in people. And, you know, it travels along nerves, you know, as a lot of dormant viruses do. So we could spend time on that. You know, more reports, it attacks the heart in a stealth way as well. Again, 51 recovered patients test positive in South Korea. So is the recovery real or is it fake? There is no reason to rush 5G. Protect your children. Oh, these death hours have got to go, ladies and gentlemen. And we got some spectacular footage here. You can see, you know, they light them from the bottom, kind of like a wick. You know, the insulation just goes up all by itself, and, you know, the fire just naturally goes up into the, you know, the transmitters. And so it turns the whole thing into quite a spectacle. And I'm sure these people are, you know, doing this, these vigilantes, if you will, these Batmans, you know, out there patrolling the night. You know, I'm sure they're doing this just for a couple of bucks, you know, a little lighter fluid, you know, sprayed on the, you know, the insulation. It goes up like tires. I mean, this is what the Antifa and the like have been doing for years, you know, civil disobedience. And look, you know, obviously, you know, it's preferable to go to city council and protest, right? But you can understand why, you know, some people out there are getting a little excited when it comes to these things. And, you know, it's a pleasure. I think a lot of people...
What's going on, people? It's your boy Ape.
I think a lot of people are liking, you know, watching these things, you know, go up in flames. You know, it went from 5G to 0G, just like that. You know, no signals now, bitches. You know what I mean? And look, I mean, what can you say? What can you say? This is obviously, you know, a comorbidity factor, a cofactor in viral infections. You know, pulsed radiation, pulsed EMF, has been known to weaken the immune response. And, you know, it causes leukemia. You know, further proof that this is what it likes to attack, you know, the white blood cells. So, you know, these things are dangerous. You know, they don't have real testing when it comes to these products. They just sell you on the eugenics like, oh yeah, it's safe, you need it, you know. And personally, I haven't used Wi-Fi or a smartphone in like a decade. And you might wonder, how do I do it? How does it work? You know, it's the Ethernet cable, man. And it feels wonderful knowing that I'm not getting sprayed with that shit. You know what I mean? UNN does not believe 5G is linked to coronavirus, but we do believe in free speech and sharing of ideas. Yeah, absolutely. You know, they're just trying to paint all dissent like, you know, it's the same type of thing. And, you know, look, let people talk about what they want to talk about without, you know, the nanny state coming in and go, oh, no, you can't talk about that. No, you over there, you can't talk about that. Who do these people think they are, you know, in Sodom and Gomorrah? You know, they come around, they're like, no, you can't talk about what you want to talk about. Look, if people are sharing videos of decapitated heads or some kind of mutilation or some kind of sick shit like that, okay, censor that stuff. That makes sense. But when people are just having like ideas about, you know, politics or science or what's going on around them, and they come in, they swoop in, they're like, don't talk about that. Don't you dare talk about that. I mean, you know, these people are shady and they're hiding something. I mean, the whole world knows, basically. UK, and look at all these reports now coming out. UK mobile networks slam baseless 5G conspiracy theories. You know, Engadget, this is sad. UK carriers would appreciate you not setting cell towers on fire. WhatsApp has brought in stricter limits on forwarding messages to try and stop the spread of quote-unquote fake news. They're not targeting CNN, they're targeting you, ladies and gentlemen. And everything is a rumor, everything's a conspiracy theory. Just like the movie 2012. Here comes Woody Harrelson, you know. But look, it is what it is out there. You have to wonder if that guy's ever seen an STFN broadcast. You'd be surprised. We've, counter-infected everyone. Think about that. We have experienced cases of vandals setting fire to mobile cell towers, disrupting critical infrastructure and spreading bad information, suggesting a connection between 5G and COVID. Look, if they have evidence that says that 5G is safe with this Wuhan supervirus, then we'd like to see it. You know what I mean? But anything they say is basically a conspiracy theory. And we were going to spend some time on some of these threads because they were pretty, excellent. And, you've got tons of evidence, tons of documents, tons of research, tons of doctors, specialists, professors, you name it, warning about the health effects of 5G, EMF, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, you name it, And there's all sorts of studies, the Interphone study, etc., that shows conclusively links between, certain types of cancers and cell phone use, let alone the death tower across the street, etc., etc. But, you've got all of these shills in the media trying to cover for the beast system because the television is nonstop product placement for the dark side. It's the devil's television, and everybody knows it. How long does it take to completely recover from COVID? We're getting, a wide spectrum of answers. I mean, there's still people, that are infected from the Diamond Princess, way back in the beginning of February. So, months and months have gone by, and there's people that are still, shedding the virus. Fears virus can hide in cells and reactivate, more reports. Ocasio-Cortez appears on The Price is Right, and everything is free, bitches. Makes you wonder, how people are going to manage with their health care and everything here in the near future. We should have universal health care in America with all the money that we spend. And, that might sound a little socialist, but I think there's a lot of people right now that are going to be left out of, decent therapy when it comes to this and many other things. And it's just a huge, inequality in our country. It's like flying first class in the hospital. You got first class and then you got regular class. Which class do you want to be in? And, I think everybody deserves first class treatment when it comes to healthcare. And look, that doesn't mean we can't be capitalists and imperialists in every other market. But I think when it comes to healthcare and education, everybody should have a chance at being equal. Every patient I've prescribed has been very, very ill, says the doctor here. And they were basically symptom-free after the chloroquine. So we're getting a lot of, positive reports when it comes to the hydroxychloroquine. But we're not always getting, what the regimen is that they're prescribing. And we've seen different, different recipes. Hydroxychloroquine, the Z-Pack or Zithromax with the zinc and vitamin C. That tends to be the thing. Probably the lower the dosage, the better. I'm not going to quote what we've seen here, but I think there is a little variation in the dosage, and lower is better. Probably like the 200 milligram ballpark per day kind of thing. But look, I think we'll find out more about that. U.S. biotech firm Gilead Science donating 1.5 million doses of experimental drug remdesivir, and they're ramping up production right now. There seems like they're feeling confident about its potential in late stage COVID cases. New York City to bury 9/11 New York City to bury COVID-19 11 victims. 9/11. Why didn't we see that sooner? You just put another one here, and it's another 9/11. You know. New York City to bury COVID 9/11 victims in local parks as morgues face equivalent of an ongoing 9/11. And let's see. Late stage COVID patients on vents are, let's see, they're having like, you know, issues related to heart disease. And what is this guy saying here? This is a doctor. It's one of our doctors that we're following. And I don't know. I don't think we're going to have time to describe. This is probably some kind of like immunotherapy again. Martin Shekel requests 3-month furlough from prison. Now, this poor guy, you know, wanted to prove that Hillary was a clone, and they locked his ass up so quick. It was bad. I think they should free Martin Shkreli. But they don't ever want to do what I say, ladies and gentlemen. They want to do it the hard way. You know what I mean? Had they been actually, you know, they should just pipe this shit into the Oval Office every day on loudspeaker and force Trump to listen to it. Who agrees with that out there? Hit like and share if you agree with that out there. They should be piping this shit right into the Oval Office and forcing him to listen to this. You know what I mean? Quite honestly, I mean, that would be the way to go. Woman with COVID-19, COVID-9/11. We're going to rename that shit so fast. COVID-9/11 may have developed rare brain disease from coronavirus, her Detroit doctor says. And we've seen numerous reports of this stealth encephalitis, like what happens with rabies in human cases. And it's the encephalitis or the inflammation of the brain that makes them go crazy. And we're going to see all sorts of people go crazy, especially during the lockdown. You're going to see a lot of homicides, people killing each other. You know, this is some kind of thing in China. More stuff in China. Let's see. Let's kind of cut the volume out, or else it's just going to keep blaring. But this is a nice little scene. You know, a winter's day somewhere in China, and everybody's, you know, dressed. It looks like stormtroopers and shit. The Empire. They're preparing to invade. You know, this is just the first wave. Stage 1 of the invasion. I think people need to prepare. Let's see. President Trump should ban the use of fluoride in our drinking water. Why hasn't he done that? Why is he rolling out the death towers everywhere? Why is he locking up Assange, letting Hillary go? Why did he let Peter Strzok go? Why did he, you know, why? You know, and we're the bad guys, of course. We're asking why. Harvard metadata analysis said it significantly lowers IQs in children. Yeah, so fluoride is bad, obviously. Fluoridation of the water was based on fraudulent science. Still is. So fluoride is bad. Detroit has over 2,200 healthcare workers that have been infected or suspected to have been infected, including 734 at Henry Ford and 1,500 at Beaumont hospitals. So, you know, this is just the beginning. This is the new way. This is going to be the new way of going outside. You know, you can turn into a peekaboo or some shit. Trump promises Boris Johnson will receive the best medicine from pharmaceutical companies Genentech, Amgen, Gilead, and Regeneron. So what do these companies do? That is the question. Regeneron has got the market, has cornered the market on antibody therapy, which promises to be very beneficial. You know, it'd be interesting to know if they can carbon copy the antibodies and just plug it into anybody. Gilead, of course, is making the remdesivir. You can look in all these articles. Amgen is also an antibody development collaboration. So, and that's really going to be the wave of the future. You know, the gene therapy, they're going to tailor make white blood cells to attack, you know, specific diseases. And the science seems pretty solid there. The question is, will it turn into I Am Legend? And are we already there? FDA green lights, phase 3, whatever this is, tocilizumab, whatever. And this seems, you know, if this is in phase 3, it's pretty promising. And Gene Tech was, you know, brought into this story. So we're guessing that this drug must do something. Because technically hydroxychloroquine is in phase 1 trials, you know, for this particular purpose, even though it's already approved for, you know, lupus and malaria. France records its highest death toll, was it yesterday, and then today another one. Interesting idea, you know, the snood. Not sure if it works or not, or if the chemicals, you know, that are coating this are worse than, you know, something else. But you can look into the snood. Germany's coronavirus outbreak appears to peak at fewer than 1,500 deaths. So pretty nice there. $20 gadget to measure your blood oxygen. Interesting device for $20 to have in the toolkit. And that brings us back to yesterday's news. We just want to cover a little bit of the press conference, yesterday's press conference, and just kind of highlight the references to testing, because we've been following the testing and we don't think the testing is working. And of course, this is just all messed up now, as usual. So we're gonna try and find this, trying to bring back this to where we want to have it play at. And we could have spent time prepping this, but it's not that necessary. You'll get the idea here. We'll just play this right now.
System of testing now is so quick and so easy. So I could see, and you were tested again today? You sure you're okay?
I'm okay.
Good, then I'm staying here.
Despite the nearly 1.8 million tests that you say the United States has done, the Inspector General for the Department of Health and Human Services released a report today, a survey of more than 300 hospitals across the country. And the number one complaint from those hospitals were severe shortages of testing supplies and a really long wait time. I mean, a week or longer.
And did I hear the word Inspector General? Really? It's wrong. And they'll talk to you about it. It's wrong.
But this is your own government.
Well, where did he come from, the Inspector General? What's his name?
It came from the Inspector
No,
General
what's his name?
report.
What's
I
his
don't
name?
know his name
Well,
off the top
find
of
me
my
his name.
head.
Let me know, okay? If
But-
you find me his name, I'd appreciate it.
But sir,
So we're not going to dwell on that particular exchange, because that was really just the first of many when it came to tests. But what we started noticing is, you know, they were being pretty aggressive when it comes to those questions. Like, they don't want to talk about it. And this is what we've been seeing. This is kind of like the hidden mystery here, is what's really going on with these tests. And we're gonna hear the big enchilada here in a few minutes. But we're gonna continue on, and that reporter just keeps drilling him on the test, and he keeps, you know, throwing her, you know, out, you know, pretty much out of the conversation. Let's try and get to this clip.
When was she appointed? When was she appointed?
I'm not sure when she was
Would you do me a
appointed.
favor? Let me know.
I'll check.
No,
with-
let me
with-
know now. I have to know now, John. Let me know now.
But the point
Because
is-
we are doing an incredible job in testing. 3 to 4% full. You have 3% of the plane is occupied. So it's they're generally very empty planes. But it's good to have. It's a tiny amount of flights relative to the overall. And we need them also for medical workers. Otherwise, we're going to have to do a whole big thing with our own planes. So they're done for a reason. There's also testing done when people get onto those planes, and also when people get off the planes.
If I can follow up on this question of the HHS Inspector General, and by the way, her name was Christy Grimm, and it wasn't so much her opinion, but they interviewed 323 different hospitals.
Well, it still could be her opinion. When was she appointed? When was she appointed?
I'm not sure when she was
Would you
appointed.
do me a favor? Let me know.
I'll check.
No,
with-
let me
with-
know now. I have to know now, John. Let me know now.
But the point
Because
is-
So, you know, we're getting an idea of at least 300 hospitals complaining about the testing. And this is, again, just the beginning of kind of like a pattern when it comes to these questions. And we're really not getting firm answers. It's just like, who are these people? Who's telling you this information? We want to know, what's their names? And that really isn't kind of like what you want to hear. Now, look, you know, it's being politicized. but they're deflecting away from the question. And we've got another
Issue
example.
of small business loans, sir. You said that businesses have applied for $40 billion in loans, but can you tell us how much of that money has actually gone out to the small businesses?
I can't tell you, but I know it goes out very quickly once the loan application's approved, and the process is very fast. And you have to understand, these are banks, and that's what they do, but they were swamped. They were actually swamped. Okay, go ahead.
I know you don't want to talk about the Inspector General report, but testing is still a big issue in this country. When can hospitals
Put the
expect?
slide up again, please.
When can
Just put it up.
hospitals expect to receive a quick turnaround of
Are you
these
ready?
test results?
Are you ready? Hospitals can do their own testing also. States can do their own testing. States are supposed to be doing testing. Hospitals are supposed to be doing testing. Do you understand that? We're the federal government. Listen to me. We're the federal government. We're not supposed to stand on street corners doing testing. They go to doctors. They go to hospitals. They go to the state. The state is a more localized government. You have 50 of them, and they can go 50 within here. You also have territories, as you know. And they do the testing. And if you look at the chart, if you take a look, did they put it up? Yeah. Just take a look. And these are testing, and the results are now coming in very quickly. Initially speaking, the tests were old, obsolete, and not really prepared. We have a brand new testing system that we developed very quickly, and that's your result. And you should say, congratulations, great job, instead of being so horrid in the way you ask a question. Please, go ahead.
Mr. President, today...
Yeah, I'd love to have the Admiral speak to that question. Yes, it's a great idea.
I think we're going to continue on with the big enchilada here, which is the Admiral kind of spilling the beans on something that we really want to focus on a little bit. And again, you know, we didn't pre-clip this, and we didn't know if we really had time to talk about this, but let's get into this timestamp here.
There's a lot of work on here, and I'm very excited about it. As opposed to the tests for a novel virus, the antibody type tests are very sophisticated technology, but they're old technology. This we expect to have many tens of millions of tests the first month that we are really sure that the test makes sense. So this allows for surveillance screening, and Dr. Birx is one of the world experts to understand, is 1%, 5%, 20% of Americans have been infected. But it also allows us to have very widespread tens and tens of millions of people screened with a finger prick on the spot.
By when? Just to be, by May you're saying this will happen? Or
Science doesn't run on rails, right? So we need to make sure that the FDA, the NIH, which they're actively doing right now, assure that the tests that they're testing really do perform the way they should. And if things work out the way we believe they will, we will have millions on the market by May in a sophisticated way, in a prospective way, that we get the surveillance we need. We can test people to see if they've been exposed, immune, and go back to work. And a combination of that kind of test with the current kind of test we have now is how America opens back up.
And how do you prioritize who gets those tests? I mean, tens of million, we're a country of 300 million. How do you determine who you're going to have that test?
Well, we are having active discussions under the leadership of Dr. Birx and the task force, but you can imagine how that is, right? But with tens and tens and tens of millions of tests per month that are available, you could really do very widespread testing. But let me just give you an example.
Which nobody else can do, by the way. No other country can do.
I'll just give you one example. It would be very important to know if the virus is still circulating here, whether, for example, a healthcare worker or a long-term care nursing home worker is immune from the virus and can't carry it. Very, very important to protect our elderly in that situation. But also, if you haven't been exposed, to make sure that you really take precautions and maybe take care of the people who don't have the virus and you don't have the virus. So it's complex, but it's not complicated on how you go about looking this in different segments of society. And I don't want to take too much more time at the podium, but antibody tests are a different thing. They're coming. We're highly confident that this can be scaled very rapidly and provide us a bit of information we just don't have now.
Jeff, go ahead.
Mr. President, may I follow up on
A
what
few
you
more. We'll do a few more.
said?
And then Mike is taking over, and you.
Well, you know, I thought there was something more interesting there, and I think we missed it. But essentially, there was a point here where they're like, you know, they got tens of millions of tests that don't work. We'll have to find that clip. and the like. But there's still a lot of questions about whether, these tests are accurate or not. And we were going to have, a big speech on, how many tests they've done and, where did they do those tests. But I think we'll save that for the next broadcast. That's all the time we have for this episode. Appreciate everybody tuning in. And we'll catch everybody next time for, whatever comes next. At this stage, we're still looking at about 10 days, 2 weeks of intense, flare-ups. And we'll just see, if it calms down a little bit for the summer, or if we get a full burn kind of like in Ecuador, or something more mild like in Australia. So stay tuned for the next broadcast. Until then, ladies and gentlemen, if you're listening to this, you are the resistance.